Our topic for today is how to speak to various decision makers within a buying community for B2B marketing. Now, if you're not familiar, the one of the major differences between B2B marketing and B2C marketing is that you're not just talking to one person, you are talking to several people who are going to make the decision about whether or not to go with your product. They are called a buying committee. Now, this buying committee is made up of several people. I'll get to that in a bit. And how you speak to each one of them needs to be different because everybody has different things on their mind that they're considering when they're trying to adopt a new product or service. So, before we get in, some backstory. Last week, I ran a consultancy call with a founder. We're trying to figure out how to build his content strategy, and I kept asking questions around um his audience and customers in general, like how are people finding you, what are their job titles and their roles. And he kept saying that it's a specific type of customer that, that's with a specific role. I was like, nah, that can't be the case. There has to be more people involved. And as I questioned him some more, what I found is that there's one other type of person involved in the process with a different job title, and the concerns that they have are slightly different from the typical people that he's been targeting with his content. Um, and based on that, we needed to build out a whole new messaging part for those type of customers. I don't want to give too much information so that I don't get sued. Okay, so just doing that whole exercise with him made me think about the role of the different people we're speaking to and then how that will influence your content strategy. So let me go through my notes here. Um, Earlier on, I mentioned that the buying committee comprises of different types of people. So I'm going to walk you through each one. The first person is your advocate or your champion. Now, the advocate or champion is the person who mentions your product or service first, and it's like, we have XYZ problem. I think we should try this too. So they're the ones who are convinced that you might be a good solution for the company. How do you become a brand rather, that the champion mentions? Well, that's where content marketing comes in. You have to win the hearts and minds of people, at least gain their attention in some way before they enter into the buying process. There's research that shows that most of the times when b- businesses want to make a buying decision, they already have an idea of the vendors or brands that they are going to consider way before they go into the market to search for a solution. So that's why you need to be visible way before people need you. And so things like um, webinars, for example, where you're just educating people on specific things that they need to get their job done. I'll give a concrete example. It's one way to be top of mind. So, yes, that's a very, very specific content type. Blogs can work, social posts can work, different things can work. If we want to get into the specific types, we're going to, that's a whole other conversation that I've covered in some of my previous videos, which I'll link to. But the point is that you want to be speaking to this type of people with the right type of messages way before they are ready to buy. Now, let me give a concrete example so that it's not like, oh, Stella is saying a lot of stuff and there's no example. So, let's say you sell project management software, right? Now, you could have content for the project manager who is going to be using your project management software, and that person can be an advocate. You could also decide that someone like the um what they will call the PMO, the person that heads the whole project management or within a business or organization, is person that you target. and then you basically provide resources or any content that will help them do their job better. Now, while you are doing that for the PMO or the person who leads the PMO, you are solidifying a memory structure in their head like, oh, this brand does XYZ. They'll help me do my job. I might not need their tool. Sorry, they've helped me with resources to do my job. I might not need their tool right away, but maybe in the future I could come back to it. So subconsciously, you're influencing them before they're even ready to buy from you. Now, when it's time for them to go to the market, they're like, oh, we're looking for a new project management tool because this one is kind of raggedy and we don't really want to use it anymore. And then they're like, oh, wait, I attended a webinar by XYZ software some months back. They looked really good. Perhaps we should consider them. And your name is on the list. So that's the idea of the advocate or champion. And yes, um, the advocate could be high level, low level, um I don't want to say low level, like it could be senior people or even like junior people within the org. It just depends on who you decide to target. Then there's the economic buyer. So the economic buyer is basically the person who's holding the keys, or they're the ones holding the cash, right? They basically are the ones who say yes, we should spend this money on this tool, or no, I'm not convinced. So depending, it could, or depending on the org, it could be the CFO, it could be the founder, it could be maybe the head of the engineering team. If you're selling like a dev tool, it could literally be different people, but mostly senior, and one who has access to resources and the ability to say yes or no. Now, for the economic buyer, how you speak to them is very different. I will get okay, let me just get into the details of what you do now for them. You When you're speaking to your economic buyer, I found that case studies are the most effective things for them. They want to see that what you are saying, what you are selling actually works. So, if you have done the work already of gathering testimonials and detailed case studies from existing customers that say, I had X problem, which is exactly the same problem that they have, and I use Y tool, which is you, and then it gave me Z results, a result that they want, then you are most likely to convince them. Obviously, this varies case by case, but it's very important to have specific case studies that speak to their role. So let me give you an example. If you have a resource management software, now the resource management software is used by a resource manager or a project manager or someone in charge of operations, right? Now, if you are writing a case study, you might be tempted to just focus on those roles because those are the people using them. But instead, when you are writing your case study, you make sure you interview the founder or interview the CFO and then get a quote or get a proof point from them how it directly affected things that they wanted to achieve. Let's say they wanted to increase efficiency by 50%. If you are able to get that stat, and this is the exact goal, not exactly like 50%, but efficiency is something that another economic buyer wants to achieve, right? It is very, very easy. You know what? I'm not going to go with it's very, very easy. It is easier to convince them than if you have like maybe a case study that's like, oh, a resource manager used this and they were able to increase the use of people's time on XYZ project. That might not be what that person is looking for. So if we were to summarize, when and this applies to all categories of people within the buying community, when you are thinking of how to speak to them, think of what is this person's job to be done, what's their pain point, what they want to do, and how do I prove that we can help them do it. So it's either through pieces of content like is either through, yeah, pieces of content like case studies, or maybe you train them, right, to do XYZ job and they remember you. The last one that I'm going to touch within the buying community is the end users. So these are the people who actually use your tool. A lot of people make the mistake of thinking the people that they see on sales calls, or like a particular persona, is the one who's going to use the tool. That's not what happens. So a CMO might buy um marketing software, let's say a keyword research tool. They might not be the one using it. They might come in from time to time just to use it for specific thing, but their jobs might be um higher level than that. So it's people underneath them. So someone like maybe the senior marketing manager that might be using that tool. So now you also need to be able to speak to these people. They might not, and just so you know, these people will not hold as much sway within the buying process, but they are still important, right? Because it depending on the organization, there's a very high chance that they will be asked to evaluate the software. So now what can you do? You can provide product guides to help them navigate the software even within the tool. You, if you have worked on, so some examples of product guides that you can provide within the tool are maybe tutorial videos. You have filmed short clips on how to use the tool that make it easier for them to understand what's going on. The other day I tried Clay for the first time. Um and then right within the tool there was a message that popped up like, oh, um here's our framework for doing XYZ, right? Watch these videos to learn. And it made it so simple for me. And I think even before that, I'd gone to their YouTube channel to just check how do you use this tool for finding leads. And it was so easy to follow their process and figure out how the tool works. So if you have anything that's product focused that can help simplify using your tool for people who are evaluating it, then you should invest in that. You should also invest in making sure that it's visible. Because I think another thing is that you might have this content there, but then people don't know it exists. So they kind of get confused while they're trying to navigate your tool. That being said, it's it's not easy to build out content for every single type of persona depending on sorry, not persona, for every single person on the buying committee. Depending on your organization, you might be swamped with work and everything, but this thing is so important because you need to speak to the right people at the right place at the right time, so that when they are going to make a decision about what software or what service they are going to use, it's easy for people to agree, because everybody within the buying committee is coming with their own ideas. Maybe i- if someone is thinking about money, they're looking at pricing, right? Which is another thing actually. Like you need to have good information about your pricing for the economic buyer as well. So not just case studies. You might have like comparison price pages that compare pricing and other features and all of that. Even within the buying committee, sometimes you have the security team, which is thinking about, okay, how are these people's compliance with data privacy laws and all of these things. You need to have this uh, already sorted out. Some of these things are out of the marketing team's hand, right? But as much as you can influence, as much as you can allocate resources to, you should be providing enough information for each type of person that exists within your buying committee. Now, it might not be exactly apparent who is on your buying committee or who is typically on the buying committees when you are starting out. Let's say you're just a startup, you have very few customers, but over time, as you speak to more people get on sales calls, and then you are gathering data, you are recording interviews, you are able to understand who and who exists. I keep telling founders that once you get on a customer call, no matter what, even if it's like some random recorder, please ensure that customer information is kept safe, please. But you need to be recording customer conversations so that you can refer back to it. So you might not meet everybody on the buying committee, but the person there with you on the call might say, "Oh, I need to get this to our head of engineering so that he would see if this fits with what we need. I need to get to the person maybe in charge of cyber security to ensure that this matches our data privacy requirements." So just when you pay attention, it gives you an idea of the people's names that are coming up over and over again, and the specific type of things that they need, and then the gaps that you can fill with content. If you nail this, you are more likely to close the deal and drive revenue for your business. So that brings us to the end of the video. Let me know if you have done any work around the messaging for different types of people within the buying committee. I'd love to hear from you. Next time, bye.